So what is your take on the modern day feminist movement?
So modern day feminism has been broadly taken over by something called intersectionality. This is a particular lens, a particular way of viewing the world that views the world very much along the same lines as the communists view the world. It's essentially all Marxist. So what you have is an oppressor class and oppressed class.
Right.
And obviously in the case of men and women, men are the oppressor class, women are the oppressed class, and therefore women, every woman is always punching up against, because it's an assessment of power dynamics. So what you're saying is all men are more powerful than all women,
right,
because men as a class are X. By whatever standards you measure it, you can choose any arbitrary standard, but they never choose standards like life expectancy or something like that, where women have suicide rates. Exactly, they never choose those ones. They always choose wages, and then but anyway, all of this can actually be reasonably explained as well. So yeah, the modern day feminist movement is essentially a sort of new form of Marxism that seeks to modify the culture of society, which is why you get so many sort of American Republicans saying, "Oh, it's cultural Marxism," because that is actually a fairly accurate description of what's happening.
I said, for me, I do see it effeminizing men, though.
It is, totally.
And making women more masculine.
Totally, and the whole point is equality, because men's masculine traits make them succeed in different arenas of life, and women's feminine traits make them succeed in different arenas of life.
Correct.
But the feminists only ever measure it by the masculine traits. So the number of CEOs, the leading men in movies, things like this. They're comparing themselves to that, but they're never looking at the women's successes as women. Do you raise a healthy family? Are you happy in your marriage? Whatever.
Sexist.
Oh, exactly right.
That's why you're a sexist.
But these are things that most women want. Most women want kids.
We do the surveys.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there was a survey by the Fawcett Society, which is a feminist society, in 2016, I think it was, that found only 9% of women are feminists. And there was another recent survey.
How many did they interview?
It was representative, something like 4,200 women. Okay. So it was quite a large number of women that they interviewed for this. And a survey in 2018 found that 25% of women and 42% of men thought that feminism was actively harmful towards men and were opposed to feminism. So more women are anti-feminist than are pro-feminist. And most women are just in the middle and so don't really have an opinion on it. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They are trying to effeminize men and masculinize women in order to equalize the differences between the sexes.
So then would you say that the reason for such a big transgender now movement is due to the feminist movement?
Totally, absolutely. It's an entirely intersectional ideology. The purpose of it is to essentially erase any kind of boundaries or borders, because any kind of...
Now you're going to be known as a transphobic now.
Well, I'm not saying whether I'm against it or not. I'm not. It
doesn't matter though.
Well, no, I don't care. It's like what people do with their own bodies, what adults do with their bodies. You do what you like. If you want to chop off your legs or whatever, I don't care. It's your legs. But that's the purpose of it. They think that any boundary or border is a form of oppression, and therefore they should be.
But then things are things either make sense or they don't.
Yes.
Right. So the male weightlifter, right, who entered the female competition, he became trans, and then he won the competition. Yeah. And then the male wrestler, who became a woman again and won it twice in a row, 2 years in a row. It doesn't make sense to do that.
No.
Right? But the trans, for me, the trans community will have you believe that this makes sense.
Yeah, the irony of all of this is that all of women's sports will eventually be dominated by people who are born male.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now I would say maybe have a trans sports.
Maybe.
Thing.
Why not?
A trans Olympics or something like that. But to make trans people enter women's sports, to me is crazy. It's obviously unfair. There's no question that men have a physical, biological advantage over women in sports or anything physical they do. Women are just not biologically built to do the sort of thing men do. Of course.
Because the roles are meant to be complementary, not adversarial.
Right.
So yeah, it is crazy, but it's the inevitable consequence of intersectional feminism, and they're seeing the results of it now.
What do we do to stop it?
Honestly, I honestly think we need to be very wary of anyone who says equality at any cost, because this is the any cost that we're looking at. The eradication of women's sports is going to be part of the any cost, because in their minds, trans women are women, and so essentially, why you would have any ideology is to have an accurate representation of reality. So what you believe should correspond to reality.
Right.
And so if they say trans women are women, what they're doing is saying, right, there's a social construct that you have in your mind of what a woman is. It's made up of certain data points. It's like, XX chromosomes. That she's going to dress in a certain way. She's going to have breasts and exactly. But more like that, like long hair. Makeup. There are lots of things. Some major, some minor. But this is what we view as a woman, and what they're saying is, right, the biological part is actually not necessary to what we consider to be a woman, and so essentially we can take any biological part, and if a man fulfills the same gender role, as in wears makeup, expects to have the door open for her, things like that, whatever the gender role, then that's a woman, and you have to treat it like it's a biological. Exactly. Because they're social constructivists is what it's called. We would what would be called biological essentialists. We believe that the biological reality of it informs the gender role, and that there's a reason that happened. I mean, it's obvious that men and women living in close proximity and needing to form relationships with one another have to figure out a way of communicating that to each other, and you can't know every woman, so it makes sense to have a series of repeated patterns that we can each recognize. So if a woman comes in and she's obviously a woman, what she's doing is signaling a lot of things to me before I've even spoken to her.
Right.
So I know that I'm not going to be rough with her. I'm not going to I'm going to open the door or pull out a chair or something like that. Whatever the cultural norm for men to do with women are, and obviously women do the reverse with men because of our signifiers. And what they're saying is no, none of that matters. And I'm sorry, but I think it does matter.
No, I think it does.
Yeah,
I really do think.